Okay, let's think about a ray. Okay, here we go. Here's a ray, A, and let's suppose it passes through a B. So this is the ray AB. And we know how to denote that. And then let's suppose there's another ray. It also starts at A, but let's suppose it passes through C. So we have this ray AC. Now, notice these rays start at the same point. Now, when that happens, we say that that point is the vertex of an angle, this angle right here. And we would refer to that angle as, with a little symbol like that looks like an angle, A. Okay, so this right here is called angle A. Now, there are different ways that we can name this angle. This is one way. We could also name it this way. We could start here at this point B, A, and C, and we could name it angle BAC. See? Or we could start over here at C and say angle CAB. The thing is, if we're talking about this angle, A, which is the vertex, needs to be in the middle of those three letters. Okay? So if we use the three-letter way of naming it. So we talk about this right here, this ray, AB. This is a side of the angle. And AC, that's also a side of the angle. So what we want to do, first of all, is we want to talk about, okay, so we define what an angle is, and then we want to name angles. So let's look down here, and let's look at an example. We've got this little figure over here, and notice we've got some angles in here. We've got this angle here, this pink one. We've got this angle here, and we've got the big overall angle here. Okay. So we've got three angles we're looking at there, and we want to name those. Now, first of all, I'll name this pink one, okay, right here, this one. Okay, so probably you can see we would go W, X, and now we have a choice when we're at X. We could go down here to Z or over here to Y. Well, since we just want this angle, this is going to be angle WXY, this right here. Or we could go YXW, that one. Okay. Now, let's talk about this angle down here. This one, okay. Notice we start here at Y, X, and Z. Okay, YXZ or ZXY. Okay. Now the big angle. Well, WXZ this time. See, we don't cut over like this. WXZ or ZXW. Now, when we talk about these angles, there is a measure of that. We classify these angles according to how big of an opening they are, how big the angle is. Now, the angle is going to be between, we're going to talk about angles in this section between 0 and 180 degrees. So if you take just a straight line, or like this, okay, here's a line. This is, and let's suppose it has A, B, and over here is C. So we've got two rays. We've got AB, and over here we've got AC. Two rays. Now, this forms an angle. But notice, this is an angle formed by opposite rays. So we call this a straight angle. A straight angle. And what it does is it makes 180 degrees. This angle right here is 180 degrees. In other words, what we do, as you know, when we talk about, later on we're going to talk about a circle, we divide the circle into 360 degrees. a half circle would be 180 degrees. So this right here is 180 degrees. Okay? And we call this a straight angle. Now, when we talk about the measure of an angle, so we could talk about this. We could say the measure of angle A is 180 degrees. Yeah. So notice I put that little M in front of it when I'm going to talk about the measure. Now, let's think about these angles that we just dealt with. We've got the measure of angle WXY, this top angle, plus the measure of angle ZXY. See, this angle plus this angle. If we add those measurements together, we get the measure of the big angle, WXZ. Okay. So just some things we can kind of observe here. Okay. Now, so we talk about the measurement of these angles. We're talking about the naming of the angles and the measurement of the angles. Now, oftentimes, as you recall, you've worked with these before, these protractors, okay? And a protractor helps you to measure angles. So, for example, let's suppose that we have an angle that has, this is one side, and then up here, here's another side, and I'll call this angle A here. The measure of angle A is equal to 30 degrees. Remember these, so if we're forming the angle this way, okay, if this is the initial side here, this is the one of the rays, and then this is the other, we would talk about this angle being 30 degrees. Now, on the other hand, let's look at a different angle. Notice these have, if you look at this, the way this protractor is set up, it has 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way down around to 180. And that's if one of the sides is here, and let's suppose the other side is over here like this. Okay? And we're talking about that angle right there. Well, this angle is going to be 120 degrees. Okay? Now, let's suppose we're not talking about this angle here. Let's suppose we are talking about this angle. We want to know, well, what is that angle? Well, then we're going to notice this angle is obviously not 120. It starts here at 0, and we go 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. This angle right here is 60 degrees. Okay? So, you have your bottom numbers and you have your top numbers. So this is just a refresher on, how you use this protractor. Now, remember also, you could have something like this. You could have, this, let's suppose we start there, and then we've got this over here, 50, like this. Let's suppose I want to know this angle here. Now, I know that this angle right here is 50 degrees. And I know that this angle over here is 80 degrees. See, I can just measure it. So this whole thing is 80 degrees. But I don't want this 50 degree part. So if I take 80 degrees minus 50 degrees, I get 30 degrees. And that is what this angle is right here. Okay. So just a refresher on how while we're talking about angle measure, how we use the protractor before. Now, we're not going to use the protractor a whole lot, but just so that you'll see. Now, some classifications of angles. While we're talking about measure of angles, we've got an angle that's less than 90 degrees. In other words, 90 degrees is just straight up and down, okay? So this would be an example of a 90-degree angle here, this one. Now, angles that are between 0 and 90, not including 90, would be acute. So we've got acute angles. They're cute little things, okay, less than 90. Angles that are bigger than 90, we call those obtuse. Okay? And angles, like I said a minute ago, like this is a straight angle. Its measure is 180 degrees. Okay. Okay. Now, let's put some of this into practice. Let's suppose we want to measure this angle right here, this KHJ. So here's K, H, and J. So we're measuring this right here. We can just look right on the protractor. Here's 50, here's 60. It looks like we're right in the middle. So this would be 55 degrees. So the measure, we would write it this way. The measure of KHJ is 55 degrees. Okay? Okay, now let's look at GHK. So here's GHK. Now this is a big angle here, right? So we're going to use the top. See? It's obviously bigger than 55. So we look up here. It's between 120 and 130. Looks like it's 125. So 125 degrees. Okay? So it's just how we're oriented there. Okay? Now let's look at GHJ. Okay, GHJ. That's 180 degrees. See? That's just straight. Now GHL. Okay? GHL. Straight up 90 degrees. Okay? So that's how we can measure these. Now, just some notation here. Let's suppose that we have a couple of angles. Let's suppose we have the measure of angle H, or let's just make up some here. Okay, let's just suppose that we have the measure of angle alpha is equal to, let's say, 32 degrees. And let's suppose we have the measure of angle beta is also equal to 32 degrees. Okay, let's suppose that we have two angles and they have the same measure. This would be the way we would write that. Now, if we just wanted to express that two angles had the same measure, we have a choice. We can say the measure of angle alpha is equal to the measure of angle beta. Now, what that means is that angle alpha is congruent to angle beta. That's what that means. Angle alpha is congruent to angle beta. Okay? So if it's got the M, the measure of alpha is equal to the measure of beta. If it doesn't have the M, we talk about congruence. So we use the congruent symbol. Okay, now let's look at another example here. Let's suppose that this big angle, LKN, this one right here, is 145 degrees. And what we want to do is we want to figure out, well, what is X in this situation? Now, so let's look at this. Let's suppose that this angle is 145 degrees, and we know that the measure of angle LKM, that's this right here, and the measure of MKN is right here. So this big angle is equal to the sum of the measures of the other. So this big angle is 145. The measure of LKM is 2x plus 10. And the measure of NKM is 4x minus 3. So what we want to do is we want to figure out what x is. Okay, so this is just kind of an algebra connection. Because we know this big angle, 145 degrees, consists of the measure of the two smaller angles. So we just put these, just solve for x. We've got 4x and 2x, that's 6x. 10 minus 3 is 7, okay? Now subtract the 7 and we get 6x equals 138. And then divide by 6. and we get x is equal to 23. Okay. So x is equal to 23. Now, let's suppose we actually want to find out what those angles are. Well, we can just plug in because, look, 2x plus 10, we just put in 23 in there. So 2 times 23 plus 10. That's 46 plus 10, which is 56. So this angle LKM, whoops, sorry, move that. Whoops, I did it again. Okay. LKM, that angle is 56 degrees. Now the other angle, MKN, just put in, it's 4x minus 3. See, 4x minus 3. Just plug in the 23 and we get 89. So this is 89 degrees here, and this over here is 56 degrees. You add 89 and 56 and you get 145. Okay, now let's look at another example here. Let's suppose that we have a straight angle. Okay, right here is a straight angle. Okay, this right here. Well, then what we know is we know that 10x minus 5 plus 4x plus 3, we know that has to equal 180. In other words, here's what we know. The measure of KLN plus the measure of angle MLN, that has to equal 180 degrees because that's a straight angle. So this is an algebra problem. We have 10x minus 5 plus 4x plus 3 equals 180. So this is 14x minus 2 equals 180. 14x minus 2 equals 180. Add 2 and you get 14x equals 182. Okay. And then just divide by 14, you get x is equal to 182 over 14. And that would give you x is equal to 13. Yeah, like that. Now, we would do the same thing for this next problem, except now we don't have a vertical angle. We have that 2x plus 2 plus x plus 1 equals 90, right? Because we have the measure of angle EFH plus the measure of GFH equals 90. So we just add these and we get 3x plus 3 equals 90. And that would give me that 3x is equal to 87, which would give me x is about 29. Yeah, 29, I think. Yeah. Yes. Okay. There we have it. Okay, now I've got this other note in here talking about congruence and angle measurement, but I think we've already covered that. Okay, now I've got your assignment here, and I think I've got you to the point where you'll be able to work through each one of these problems. So let me know if you have any difficulties.